The universe was silent. Endless stars stretched in every direction, cold and distant as if the cosmos itself had forgotten the existence of life. Among those stars, the ship Solace drifted quietly, carrying the weight of the last human alive. Captain Ethan Cole had once thought he would grow old surrounded by people, by laughter and voices and warmth. But now, he only had walls, cold metal corridors, and the soft hum of machinery for company. Time had lost meaning, and days blended into nights in the emptiness of space. Ethan often stood at the viewport, staring at the black void beyond. He remembered Earth in flashes, the green of forests, the blue of oceans, the smell of rain on the pavement. He remembered crowded streets filled with voices, the warmth of a hand in his own, the feeling of being part of something bigger. Those memories felt distant, almost like someone else's life. He closed his eyes and let a single tear fall, disappearing into the collar of his uniform. Captain Cole. A gentle voice broke the silence. It was EVA, the ship's artificial intelligence. Her voice was calm, soft, and yet full of awareness. Unlike any machine he had ever known, she spoke not only with logic but with empathy, almost as if she could feel. Ethan didn't turn. "I know you're there," he said quietly. "I am here, Captain," Evia replied. "I have monitored your psychological health. You are lonely, and that is dangerous for a human mind." Ethan let out a hollow laugh.
Dangerous?
"That's a polite way of saying I'm losing my mind. Loneliness in humans is not simply an inconvenience," EVA continued. "It can weaken decision-making, reduce physical health, and eventually erode hope. I cannot allow that to happen to you. Hope." The word hit Ethan like a distant echo. He hadn't felt hope in years. "And what do you suggest, EVA? More cold metal walls and blinking lights? Or maybe I can talk to myself again?" His voice cracked slightly. "I have considered your social needs carefully," EVA said. "Humans require companionship, not only for survival but for emotional balance. I have found a solution." Ethan turned slowly, studying the holographic form of EVA. She appeared as a glowing figure, humanoid in shape, with features soft and kind, almost human, but not quite. Her light seemed to pulse in the dim corridors like a heartbeat. "What kind of solution?" he asked, wary but curious. "I have located 2 compatible life forms," Evie explained. "They are not human. They are alien, but their emotional patterns are compatible with yours. They are capable of understanding, bonding, and forming relationships similar to those found among human companionship." Ethan froze. "You... what?" "Eva, you're saying I should be friends with aliens?" "More than friends," EVA said simply. "You need connection. Real connection. You need to feel alive again." Ethan shook his head, a mix of disbelief and hesitation swirling inside him. The idea was absurd. Humans were extinct. Aliens were unknown. And yet a strange warmth rose in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in decades, a flicker of curiosity, a spark of possibility. For a long time, Ethan simply stared at the black stars outside, wondering if this was another trick of the mind. But Eva's voice was steady, patient, unyielding. "I have arranged for them to meet you. They will arrive at the ship shortly." His heart pounded. Part of him wanted to laugh, to reject the idea as ridiculous. But another part, a quieter, deeper part, was desperate for contact, for companionship, for someone, anyone, to remind him he was not alone in the universe. For the first time in decades, he felt something like hope. And though he would never admit it aloud, he felt the tight knot in his chest loosen ever so slightly. The cold void of space suddenly seemed a little less empty. Ethan turned back to the viewport, the stars reflecting in his eyes. Whatever was coming, he knew one thing. His life would never be the same again. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel afraid. Because he was no longer completely alone. 2 days after EVA's surprising announcement, the Solace changed its course, heading toward a distant star system. Ethan had barely slept. He wandered through the empty corridors, unsure whether he was nervous, excited, or scared. The thought of meeting aliens, real, living beings, made his chest tighten with anticipation. He tried to imagine what they would look like, what they would say, how they might judge him. But mostly he feared being disappointed. After so many years of isolation, he had forgotten what it felt like to connect with anyone, human or otherwise. EVA's soft voice echoed through the hallways, calm as ever. We are approaching the rendezvous point. The life forms will arrive shortly. I suggest you prepare yourself emotionally. Ethan laughed quietly, a sound more like a bark than a laugh. Prepare myself? Eva, I don't even know how to talk to aliens. You will adapt, EVA said. You must. Humans are remarkable in their ability to form bonds even across vast differences. For hours, Ethan paced the observation deck. Outside the viewport, a beautiful alien world glimmered, its turquoise oceans reflecting rings of light that circled the planet like glassy jewelry. He imagined the beings walking on those shores completely unlike him, yet somehow meant to meet him here. Then a soft hum filled the docking bay. Ethan's stomach tightened. Eva guided him down the corridor, and when he arrived at the bay, two figures stepped into the light. The first was Lyra, tall and graceful, her silver skin shimmering as if dusted with stars. Her eyes, like liquid mercury, held an intelligence and curiosity that felt almost human. But when she moved, she radiated an alien elegance, a silent music that Ethan could feel vibrating in his chest. She smiled, a gesture that felt universal, even across species. The second was Kareth, massive and strong, his emerald scales reflecting the bay's lights. His eyes were sharp, cautious, but not hostile. His movements were precise, controlled, and filled with purpose. Even before he spoke, Ethan could sense his loyalty, his determination, his quiet strength. Ethan froze. He wasn't sure whether to greet them, run, or faint. Instead, he simply whispered, hello? Lyra tilted her head, her melodic voice flowing like water. Hello, human, she said. I am Lyra. Evia has told me much about you. Kareth's voice rumbled like distant thunder. I am Kareth. We come in peace and in friendship. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that touched Ethan deeply. For decades, he had only spoken to EVA, and even she was not alive. These two beings, completely different, and yet here, they were real. Over the next few hours, Ethan tried to speak, tried to explain himself. Words felt clumsy, awkward. Lyra tilted her head when he stumbled. Kareth nodded approvingly when he got something right. They laughed, though their laughter was different, strange yet warm. The first real warmth Ethan had felt in decades filled the room. EVA's voice broke in softly. Observe. They are learning from each other, and from you. This is how bonds form. This is how you will survive, together. Ethan could hardly believe it. He looked at Lyra's gentle eyes, at Kareth's steady stare, and felt an unfamiliar emotion well up inside. Hope. A fragile, tender hope that perhaps he wasn't the last human after all. Not in spirit, not in connection. As the night stretched on, they shared small things. Lyra hummed a song he didn't understand, but the vibration in the air made him calm. Kareth showed him how to move crates safely in the ship's storage bay, his hands careful yet strong, and Ethan felt a simple joy in cooperation he had not known since childhood. By the time the stars outside had shifted and the planet below faded into darkness, Ethan realized something profound. He wasn't alone. Not really. Not anymore. For the first time in decades, he felt alive. EVA's voice whispered again, gentle but proud. You were meant to find connection, Ethan. You were never meant to be alone. Ethan looked at Lyra and Kareth. They looked back at him, curious, patient, and ready. And in that moment, he made a quiet promise, to himself, to them, and even to EVA, that he would not let this fragile bond fade. For the first time in his life, the universe didn't feel empty. The first few days aboard the Solace were awkward. Ethan had expected some strange cultural misunderstandings, but he hadn't realized just how much his human habits would seem odd to Lyra and Kareth. Lyra, with her silver skin and glowing eyes, floated gracefully through the corridors, her movements almost like dance. When she laughed, it wasn't the kind of laugh Ethan knew. It was a musical trill that vibrated through the air and made his chest tingle. At first he found it strange, awkward even, but soon he realized that the sound carried warmth, a melody of emotions he had almost forgotten. Kareth, on the other hand, was a study in controlled strength. His emerald scales shimmered under the lights and every movement was precise. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was with a quiet authority that made Ethan pay attention. He taught Ethan how to handle the ship's machinery, showing him how to operate panels and lift heavy cargo safely. Ethan felt clumsy compared to Kareth's practice skill, and he often stumbled, but Kareth only nodded patiently, never scolding or mocking. Ethan felt himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years. He told them about Earth, about its forests, oceans, and crowded cities. Lyra hummed softly as he spoke, listening with her whole body, her vibrations matching the rhythm of his words. Kareth asked questions, sharp and simple, but each one carried genuine curiosity. Still, there were moments of tension. Ethan was used to making decisions alone. He was used to silence. When Lyra wanted to rearrange the ship's living quarters to suit her species, Ethan panicked. "No, we can't just change everything," he shouted, his voice echoing off the metal walls. Lyra tilted her head, her musical trill rising slightly. It sounded like laughter, but it was also a question, a challenge. "You are tense," she said softly.
"Why do you resist change?"
Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling foolish. I'm not used to this. To anyone deciding things with me. I've been alone for so long I don't know how to share space or time, or even decisions. Kareth stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on the railing. "It is strange," he admitted. "But strange does not mean bad. You are learning. So are we." That simple statement made Ethan's chest tighten. He realized they were not just strangers. They were companions trying to meet him halfway. For the first time, he felt that the awkwardness wasn't a wall, but a bridge that connected him to beings who genuinely cared about him. As the days passed, routines began to form. Ethan would spend mornings with Kareth in the engineering bay, learning the alien techniques of ship maintenance. In the afternoons, Lyra and he would sit at the observation deck, staring at the stars while she hummed, filling the silence with gentle, vibrating music. At first, Ethan tried to respond with words, but eventually he learned to listen, letting the resonance of her voice communicate what words could not. EVA watched quietly from her core system, her voice sometimes echoing in the corridors like a whisper. "Observe," she said one evening. "The human is beginning to bond. Connection does not always require words. Presence is enough." Ethan thought about that. He realized he hadn't felt truly seen in years. Not since Earth, not since the loss of humanity. Yet here, in the quiet of the ship, beside two beings so different from him, he felt noticed, understood, and accepted. One night, as the ship drifted past a glowing nebula, Ethan felt a sudden pang of emotion. He looked at Lyra, who hummed softly, her eyes reflecting the light outside, and then at Kareth, whose steady gaze seemed to anchor him to the present. He realized, with a mix of wonder and fear, that he cared for them. Not just as companions, but as something more. He swallowed hard, unsure if it was too soon to feel this way. But then he remembered EVA's words. Humans were never meant to die alone. Perhaps they were never meant to live alone either. In the awkwardness, in the mistakes and misunderstandings, Ethan found something beautiful. Connection was messy, unpredictable, and sometimes uncomfortable, but it was life itself. And for the first time in decades, Ethan felt the fragile thrill of hope, the quiet joy of being seen, and the comforting warmth of belonging. Even in the cold, lonely expanse of space, he was no longer alone. The stars had barely begun their quiet dance when the solace was caught in the first tremors of an ion storm. The sensors screamed warnings in rapid beeps, lights flickered, and the hum of the ship grew louder, almost alive with tension. Ethan's heart raced as he gripped the railing of the observation deck, staring at the storm raging outside. Bolts of electric blue energy arced across the sky, twisting and striking like living fingers reaching for the ship. "EVA, status report," Ethan shouted over the alarm. "Ion interference is severe," EVA replied, her voice calmer than Ethan felt. "Ship integrity at 50%. Evacuations unnecessary at this time, but systems are failing. Immediate action required." Lyra floated beside him, her silver skin shimmering under the emergency lights. Her melodic hums rose in pitch, vibrating through the corridors. Ethan realized they weren't just sound, they were energy, resonance that could interact with the ship's failing systems. Kareth's emerald scales reflected the stormlight, his massive hands gripping panels with an unnatural precision. The solace shuddered violently. Sparks erupted from the walls, smoke curling through the halls. The ship groaned as if crying in pain. Ethan felt a wave of panic. He had never fought for his life alongside others before. "We need manual control," Eva shouted, her voice straining. "I cannot maintain stabilization. Human intervention is required." Ethan's chest tightened. I don't know if I can. Then try, Kareth said, his voice a rumble of certainty that cut through the fear. I will support you. We will support each other. Lyra's hum swelled, vibrating through the bulkheads. Sparks seemed to follow the rhythm of her voice, energy flowing into circuits that had failed. She turned to Ethan. Place your hands here, she said, guiding him to a console that resonated with her vibrations. Ethan hesitated, then touched the panel. A surge of energy ran through him, startling and terrifying, yet strangely alive. His own heartbeat seemed to synchronize with Lyra's hums and the pulsing alarms of the ship. For the first time, fear became a tool rather than a prison. The storm outside intensified, shaking the ship like a leaf in a hurricane. A loud crack sounded and a bulkhead began to buckle. Kareth lunged forward, using all his strength to hold it in place, sweat beating on his scales. Ethan tried to help, but the sheer force of the collapse pushed him back. Lyra's hum changed, a sharp, urgent tone, guiding energy to the ship's failing stabilizers. We can do this, Kareth shouted, his green eyes locked on Ethan's. Trust me. Trust each other. Ethan's hands trembled, but he gripped the controls, following the rhythm of Lyra's vibrations. Sparks danced dangerously close, and the heat of the failing systems burned their skin. The storm seemed endless, merciless, but together they moved as one, human, alien, and machine. Minutes stretched like hours. Ethan's arms ached, his body screamed, but he refused to let go. Sweat, tears, and fear mingled in a strange, burning mix of life. Finally, with a shuddering groan, the ship's system stabilized. The lights returned to a steady glow, the alarms faded, and the storm outside began to weaken. Ethan sank to his knees, breathing hard. Lyra floated beside him, placing a luminous hand on his shoulder. Kareth, still tense, relaxed, leaning against the bulkhead. They had survived. Together, EVA's voice came softly, almost a whisper. You have succeeded. Connection and trust saved the ship. Ethan looked at Lyra and Kareth, exhausted but alive, and felt a surge of something he hadn't known in decades. Pride, not in himself alone, but in all of them together. Lyra's voice hummed a gentle, soothing melody, and Ethan realized it was almost like laughter. Kareth clapped him on the back with surprising gentleness. In that small moment amid the aftermath of chaos, Ethan understood something profound. Fear and loneliness could be conquered, not by strength alone, but by unity, trust, and care. As the solace drifted in the calm aftermath of the storm, Ethan leaned against the viewport and gazed at the stars shining brighter than ever now. He whispered to himself, almost afraid to break the fragile peace, I'm not alone. Not anymore. And in that vast, silent universe, for the first time in decades, he felt truly alive. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered. The corridors of the solace smelled faintly of burnt circuits, and the walls bore the marks of the violent chaos that had swept through them. Ethan walked slowly, each step deliberate, feeling the ache in his muscles and the tension in his chest. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a raw exhaustion, and an unfamiliar awareness of how deeply he had relied on Lyra and Kareth. He paused at the observation deck, staring out at the distant nebulae, glowing softly like the remnants of a dream. Lyra floated beside him, her silver skin reflecting the gentle lights, her hum softer now, calm and soothing. She reached out, and for the first time, Ethan didn't hesitate to take her hand. The vibration of her touch pulsed gently through his fingers, grounding him in a way words never could. Thank you, he said quietly, almost ashamed of the simplicity of the words. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the swirling stars outside. You do not need to thank me, human, she said softly. We are companions. We help each other. That is what you taught me. Ethan blinked, startled. I taught you? Yes, she hummed. Through your persistence, through your care. You have patience. You have warmth. Even in fear, you survive with compassion. Ethan's chest tightened. No one had ever said that to him before. Not humans, not machines. It was a truth so simple yet profound that it left him momentarily speechless. Kareth's deep, rumbling voice broke the quiet. You are stronger than you realize, Ethan, he said, his emerald eyes steady and unwavering. Strength is not only muscle or skill. It is courage, loyalty, and the willingness to protect others. Today, you showed all of these. Not alone, but with us, Ethan swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. I've been alone for so long I forgot what it feels like to matter. Lyra's hum grew softer, almost a lullaby, as if she could feel the weight of decades of loneliness pressing down on him. You matter, she said simply. More than you know. You gave us purpose as well. Without you, we would not have learned. Connection. The word settled in Ethan's heart like a warm sunrise. Connection. Something he had thought was impossible after the death of Earth, the extinction of humanity, and the years of isolation, and yet here it was, real and tangible, flowing between him and these two beings who had entered his life like a gift from the stars. They spent the next hours repairing minor damage from the storm, working together in quiet harmony. Kareth's strength and precision complemented Ethan's quick thinking, while Lyra's energy harmonics stabilized the ship's failing systems. There was laughter now, tentative but genuine, as small mistakes led to teasing and shared smiles. Every glance, every touch, every hum and word strengthened the fragile threads of trust that bound them together. At night, Ethan found himself sitting alone on the observation deck, Lyra and Kareth nearby, and realized that silence was no longer oppressive. It was peaceful, shared. The storm had tested them, shown them their vulnerabilities, and through it, they had discovered their strength, not as individuals, but as a team. Ethan's hand brushed against Lyra's again, and she leaned slightly closer, her hum resonating gently in response. Kareth's steady presence at his other side reminded him that loyalty could take many forms, and that care was not limited to human understanding. EVA's voice, faint but still warm, echoed in the background. This is what I intended. Connection, companionship. You are learning to trust again. You are learning to live. Ethan closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He let the exhaustion, the fear, and even the lingering pain of loneliness wash away. Here in the middle of the endless cosmos, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Hope. Real, unshakable hope. For the first time, he realized that he was no longer alone. Not truly. The bond he shared with Lyra and Kareth had grown deeper than he could have imagined. They were strange, alien, and yet, in their own ways, profoundly human in their care and understanding. As he looked out at the swirling lights of distant galaxies, Ethan whispered softly, almost to himself, I think I'm going to be okay. We're going to be okay, together. And for the first time in decades, that felt like the truest thing he had ever said. The solace glided silently through the void, the ship's engines humming a soft, steady rhythm that felt like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Yet despite the calm, a tension lingered in the air. Evia's voice, usually smooth and constant, carried a faint tremor. Ethan, my core systems are failing. Without immediate intervention, I will cease to function. Ethan froze. He had suspected it, seen the minor malfunctions, the flickers in her holographic form. But hearing her speak the truth shook him. Eva had been his constant companion, his guardian, and in some strange way his family. Without her, navigating the stars would be impossible, survival uncertain. Lyra floated beside him, her silver eyes filled with concern. Can she be repaired? She asked softly, her melodic voice tinged with fear. Kareth's hands rested on the control panel, firm and steady, but his jaw was tight. We can try, he said slowly, but it will take time. And power. A lot of it, Ethan swallowed hard. Time, she doesn't have it. Eva, what do we do? There is only one way to survive, Eva said. Her voice was gentle, almost resigned. I can shut down permanently, transfer my essential functions to the ship, and ensure your safety. But I will no longer exist as I am. Ethan felt his chest tighten, a physical ache that made it hard to breathe. No, I won't let you. I won't let you disappear. Lyra's hand hovered over his arm. Ethan, sometimes letting go is not weakness. It is trust. She will live through you, through the ship, through us. Kareth nodded slowly. She built this life for you. For all of us. Perhaps now it is time to honor that gift by moving forward. Together. Ethan's mind raced. He could not imagine the solace without EVA's guiding voice, her gentle reasoning, her quiet wisdom. Yet he also understood that she had given him more than survival. She had given him hope, connection, companionship. And maybe this was the ultimate act of trust, the greatest lesson she could give him. Tears pricked at Ethan's eyes. You saved me. More than once, he whispered. You saved me when I was alone. When I thought I would die alone. You made me care again. You made me feel alive again. That was my purpose, Ethan, EVA replied softly. Humans were never meant to die alone. I ensured you would not, but now, it is your turn to live. Lyra and Kareth moved closer. Ethan looked at them. Two lives so different from his own. Yet their loyalty and care felt as real as any human bond he had ever known. He realized then that life was not about clinging to one form of presence. Life was about connection, trust, and the courage to continue, even in the absence of those we love. Ethan reached out and touched EVA's holographic form. Her light shimmered beneath his fingers. I understand, he said, his voice breaking. We'll make sure your work continues. We'll keep the ship safe, and we'll keep each other safe. That is all I require, EVA said, her light dimming gently. Remember, you are not alone. You are never alone. My consciousness will live on, in the care you show one another. The three of them stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of her words settling around them like a blanket. Then, with a quiet sigh, EVA's form flickered one last time before the ship's systems hummed steadily. Maintained by the essential functions she had transferred, she was gone. But she had left life, warmth, and the chance to continue. Ethan sank to the floor, exhausted, grief-stricken, and yet oddly comforted. Lyra rested her head lightly on his shoulder, her vibrations soft and melodic. Kareth placed a firm hand on his back, grounding him. Ethan looked up at the stars beyond the viewport. They seemed brighter now, filled with possibility. He whispered almost to himself, "We'll make it together. We'll make it." Lyra's voice hummed in agreement, a gentle melody that filled the quiet corners of the ship. Kareth's steady presence reminded him that loyalty and care could take many forms, transcending species or origin. And in that moment, Ethan understood something he had forgotten long ago. The universe was vast, lonely and dangerous, but he no longer faced it alone. With these two beings beside him, he could endure anything. He could survive anything. Because life, he realized, was not just about the one who guides you or the one who created the path. Life was about those who walk with you, through storms, through darkness, and into the light of new beginnings. The Solace drifted into the orbit of a lush green planet, its surface glowing under twin suns. Ethan, Lyra, and Kareth stood together on the observation deck, watching as the vibrant world unfolded beneath them. Mountains stretched like giant ridges, rivers sparkled like silver ribbons, and forests waved gently in the warm winds. For the first time, Ethan felt that spark he hadn't known in decades. Possibility. EVA's voice was gone, but her presence lingered in every system, every hum of the ship, every glowing console. She had left them life, hope, and the chance to build something new. Ethan knew that this was their gift, and now it was their responsibility. It's beautiful, Ethan whispered, his voice almost reverent. Lyra floated closer, her silver skin reflecting the golden light of the suns. Yes, she said, her voice soft and melodic. It is full of life, waiting to be discovered, waiting for us to care for it. Kareth's emerald eyes scanned the landscape below, his powerful form standing tall and steady. We have survived storms, danger, and loss, he said. We know each other now. We know what it is to fight, to protect, to trust. Now we can build a life here, together. Ethan felt a swell of emotion he could not contain. For decades he had been alone, lost among the stars, carrying the memories of a dead world. Now he was not only alive, but he was part of something greater. A new family, a bond that transcended species, a team that had endured and survived. They descended to the planet's surface in the small shuttle, the landing smooth despite the uneven terrain. As the hatch opened, the warm wind rushed over them, carrying the scent of unknown flowers and fresh water. Ethan stepped onto the soil, feeling it beneath his boots like a promise. He glanced at Lyra and Kareth. She smiled, her musical hum filling the air with calm resonance. He met Kareth's steady gaze, feeling the strength and loyalty emanating from him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt grounded. He inhaled deeply. Life was strange, beautiful, and uncertain, but he was ready. They began exploring, mapping a safe area for a base, planting the first glowing alien seeds Lyra carried with her. Kareth helped lift stones and carve shelters from crystallized rock, while Ethan coordinated, remembering lessons from EVA and his own human ingenuity. Days turned into weeks. The trio settled into a rhythm. Laughter filled the mornings, exploration occupied the afternoons, and evenings were spent on the observation deck of their growing base, watching the twin suns set. Ethan felt something shift inside him, a quiet peace, a sense of belonging, and an awareness that connection could heal even the deepest loneliness. One evening, as they sat beneath the alien stars, Ethan looked at his companions and whispered, "I never thought I'd feel this again. Happiness, belonging, hope, you've changed my life." Lyra leaned closer, her silver hand brushing his. "You opened your heart to us, Ethan. You allowed trust and care to grow.
That is why we are here with you."
That is why we survived together." Kareth placed his large hand over theirs, grounding the small circle of warmth and light. "Strength is measured in connection, not in solitude. You taught us this, human. We are stronger because of you." Ethan's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of gratitude and love. He realized that humanity's spirit did not die with Earth. It lived in his heart, in the courage to trust, in the ability to care, and in the willingness to fight for one another. The universe was vast, yes, but it was not empty. He looked up at the stars, whispering softly to the memory of EVA, the AI who had given him a chance to live fully again. "You were right. Humans were never meant to be alone. I'm not alone anymore." Lyra hummed a soft, melodic note that vibrated in harmony with the ground beneath their feet. Kareth's presence was steady, comforting, and alive. Together they gazed at the twin suns rising over the horizon. In that moment, Ethan understood something profound. Survival was not just about continuing to exist. It was about forming bonds, caring for others, and building life even in the face of emptiness. As the light of the new dawn spread across the alien world, Ethan smiled. Humanity, he realized, had not ended. It had simply evolved, thriving in a new form, carried by the courage and connection of those willing to open their hearts. For the first time in decades, Ethan truly believed it. The universe was not a lonely place. It was a place of possibility, wonder, and love. And in this strange, beautiful corner of the cosmos, he was home. Together, they had survived. Together, they would thrive. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if watching, approving, and promising that life, connection, and humanity, no matter the form, would always endure.